on it. We've already got Roger Stone booked for TV for tomorrow night, who wrote the book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy. As soon as they're available, and that could happen any minute, as soon as they're available, we will start going through them, actually using artificial intelligence, believe it or not. Because do you think we have time to go through 80,000 documents? No. But I already asked Grok Deep Search this morning if he or she, does anyone know, is Grok a he or a she? No, they're not really a they, them, are they? Let's pray that's not the case. I'm going to say she. I've asked her if she can go through those 80,000 pages, and she replied back that she was standing by ready to do it. That as soon as they were posted on the National Archives website, she would provide me with bullet points and the key points. So let's see if it really works, because I don't have time to read 80,000 pages, although I'm very interested in reading as much as I can. Now, what else do we have? Well, we were on the air last night with David Pyne, warning that we might be on our way to war with Iran and that we might want to try to slow things down a little bit. We don't need our military stretched over multiple theaters, if you will. I'm not sure we can actually sustain multiple theaters. So we've got what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and then we've got what's going on with Gaza and the Middle East and the Red Sea and the Houthis helping Israel. Then we've got the risk of starting something with Iran, which in some ways, I guess we already have if we're striking the Houthis and they're a proxy for Iran. But then you got to worry, as David Pyne said, about spring, and this is a perfect opportunity for China to move in on Taiwan. And we had reports, when I went to bed last night, we were getting reports that maybe there was some activity by China around Taiwan. Then we have to worry about China against the Philippines. We also have South Korea. Some of their leaders seem to be full-on communists, from what Gordon Chang is telling us, and want to basically follow the leadership of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. The world is on fire. Is anyone taking note of that? And then, of course, we have whatever is going on in Canada and in Mexico that are existential threats to our country, including the drug war with the Mexican cartels. Then we have the TRD, Tren de Aragua, Venezuelan groups here in the country that have already been designated as terrorist organizations. And we have an absolute reprobate judge, federal judge, who thinks that he can dictate to the Trump administration a national security issue. And of course, he's going to, I think, use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to get rid of more of these illegal invaders, the he being President Donald Trump. And then we have word that President Trump, this caught me by surprise. I don't know how I didn't know about this sooner. Apparently it was in the news earlier in the month that President Trump was perhaps requesting to have the Declaration of Independence moved to his office. And apparently that's happened today. From what I'm seeing, and I'd like to see some video footage of it, but a picture I saw, apparently the Declaration of Independence has been moved into the Oval Office. And there are black curtains that have been placed in front of it. I would assume that's so that the light in the room does not fade the document. What does that tell you, folks? The Declaration of Independence. What do you think that says? We're going to be joined now by David Pyne and by our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Levarco, with all of the breaking news, some of which I just covered. Let's go to David Pyne first. David, welcome back to the broadcast and our 74 stations joining us today. We don't often get you on radio, but this is such a breaking story. We needed to bring you on. Bring our audience up to speed, if you would, please, David.
Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for having me on. So you're right. It's a very kind of news-packed day. Trump just concluded a 3-hour call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. They agreed on a partial ceasefire, or really just a, kind of an end to attacks on, energy and infrastructure targets by Russia and Ukraine. It's unclear if Zelensky will agree to that. It certainly would benefit him if he did, because Russia's been pounding Ukraine's energy grid, among other things. And Ukraine's responded by attacking some oil targets in Russia. So that was positive. They also agreed to negotiate a near-term ceasefire in terms of naval warfare and partial blockade that Russia's had off and on against Ukraine. So that's positive. And hopefully they discussed, some of the more meaty terms that Russia has said that it would require for a final peace deal ending the war in Ukraine. And then, in response to what you talked about with the Declaration of Independence, I think the reason that President Trump wants that in the White House is we have April 2nd coming up, and that is really going to be, with those reciprocal tariffs against China, that's really going to be a declaration of independence by the U.S. Against Chinese economic dominance, where they've been trying to transform us into essentially almost a colonial power, a third world economy, which, whereby we buy all of China's manufactured goods and then we ship them back, raw materials to build more, essentially.
So there we just put up on the screen the pictures. Do we have any video, Logan? I mean, it's not going to help people on the radio, but I would be curious to see any video footage. But I mean, I don't think there is any yet, but they're going to release it. Now, if I remember correctly, the Declaration of Independence, which I've seen several times, was at the National Archive, and it would go down at night into a vault. It would come up in the morning under glass. It would be under glass, bulletproof glass. Logan, you don't remember, you're too young, but you have stood before the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, but you were too little to remember. And then at night it goes down into a vault where it's kept safe. I mean, this is pretty remarkable to have it removed and brought into the Oval Office. Just from a historical standpoint, we're going to have to cover this tonight. That is absolutely fascinating to me. Now, 3-hour phone call between Putin and President Trump. I know that they had scheduled President Trump's call to last 2 hours. It went 3 hours. Logan asked a very good question this morning. Does Putin speak English? And is one reason the call took so long is they have to allow for all the interpreters?
Putin does speak English, and a lot of people aren't aware of that because, Russia is a great power. He almost gives all his speeches in Russian, of course, even in diplomatic events where he's speaking with another foreign leader, he'll speak in Russian, even if it's with an American president. And so that's pretty routine. But in terms, if Trump were to talk to him, just off camera or something in English, he fully understands it and can respond accordingly. So I doubt that there was a lot of, I don't think he spoke English during the call. I don't think there is really a need for that, but he certainly does understand English, and he speaks fluent German as well, having been stationed in East Germany during the Cold War.
Wow. Let's talk about Iran now. What's the latest? I mean, we were on with you last night, and you were saying, look, we don't need to get into interaction with Iran. We need to slow this thing down. We really can't handle multiple theaters right now with our military, and that's not President Trump's fault, obviously. And then when we went off the air, we started getting reports of more bombing of the Houthis, the Iranian front there in the Middle East, by the Trump administration. And I think also maybe Israel was involved in some bombings in the Gaza. So that ceasefire is done and over. The hostages were not returned, apparently. And I guess they said, OK, we're going back to bombing. So you've got quite a lot going on in the Middle East. Tell me what we know about what's going on with Iran, because you're concerned that we fool around with Iran, we got stuff going on in the Middle East, and now we get China moving in on Taiwan. But when we went off the air last night, we started reading reports that maybe there was some activity around Taiwan by China. I know that's a lot of area to cover, but it's all connected, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah, and you're absolutely right. My biggest fear is that China is gonna take advantage of this window of opportunity because they haven't had this type of geopolitical advantage over us in my memory. Where we're fighting two regional proxy wars, one in Europe and in Ukraine, obviously, and one in the greater Middle East. Not just in Gaza. It's multi-front, as Israel stated. In Lebanon and Yemen. There's been missile exchanges between Israel and Iran. We could see that happen again. And all of this, especially if the U.S. were to get into a direct war with a nuclear-armed Iran, I mean, that's just a flashing green light for that Xi will not be able to resist. I predict if we get into a war with Iran, China would move almost immediately to invade and blockade Taiwan under the likely correct reasoning that the U.S. would be unable to respond effectively militarily with our military forces overstretched across the world. And it's all a matter of prioritization. Elbridge Colby, the Undersecretary of Defense designate, hopefully he'll be confirmed here soon. He's really spoken eloquently of the need for prioritization. We have one major enemy that threatens us, and then, of course, an alliance system that China has built up. We need to attack their alliance system. That's a diplomatic measure it can't be achieved by war. The more we fight Russia and Ukraine, the closer Russia and China get together and start planning, retaliatory strikes on the U.S. homeland, and of course our allies as well. So we need to, Trump needs to continue to move forward with this, his peace initiative with Russia, his, I think brilliant plan to, if not establish a U.S.-Russia entente, to have a grand strategic partnership for peace with Russia that could very well succeed in neutralizing the Sino-Russian alliance. But as you stated, China is already, just within the first day of these, Israel's attacks and our renewed attacks against the Houthis, they've deployed, 59 aircraft as of yesterday, as well as 9 warships, and that force could continue to grow as the days and weeks continue. Given early April is kind of one of their most ideal windows to invade Taiwan based on the sea state of the Taiwan Straits.
We got a break. The computer is going to take it away here in a minute, but I want to get started. But if I have to jump in and interrupt, please know why. You mentioned strikes on the U.S. homeland. Tell me more about that, please.
Well, yeah, I think, Russia and China and even Iran have secret EMP weapons.
I'll tell you what, I am going to jump in because that music's starting to drown you out. Our music starts competing with the voices of the guests, and I don't want anyone to miss anything that David Pyne is saying. So we'll let him pick that up on the other side of the break. His website is Pyne, and that's for radio. It's David, D, and then Pyne. So he spells Pyne a little differently than you would expect. It's D-Pyne, dpyne.substack.com. If you want to read more about his work and research, dpyne.substack.com. We'll be back with more by David and then our reporter in Israel. Don't go away. We're not changing courses now. We are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Be sure to stay tuned for crosstalk on these mini stations. of the VCY America Radio Network. Jim Schneider, your host, America's original Christian talk program since the 1970s. And if you don't have one of their terrestrial stations in your market, you will find out more at vcy.org and can hear it there as well, vcy.org. Don't forget, we are coming to the Milwaukee area, just outside of Milwaukee, in Waukesha Expo Center, and we are looking forward to it. I think last I heard, Logan, we got about 900 seats thus far spoken for. We want to fill it up, folks, so please help us get out the word and let's fill it up. And it is free, but you do need to register. worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. It's on Tuesday evening, April 15th. It's the first time we'll have done a Worldview weekend rally in 7 years. So we're getting back out on the road, and we have chosen one of our very top favorite cities to go to, which is the Milwaukee area. And Waukesha specifically is where we'll be at the Waukesha Expo Center. Again, it is free, but you need to register so we know that we have enough seats out and available. And it also allows our speakers to know how many books to have shipped and different resources to be available for you as well. So worldviewtube.com/events, but tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social, whatever you do, let folks know that we're coming to town. Myself, Dr. Andy Woods, and our reporter on the ground in Israel will be on the ground with us in Waukesha. It just happened to be that we had this planned, and then he's like, I'll be in the States. We found that out live here on the air, didn't we? So we said, oh, well, you have to come over and be a part of it. So it starts at 6:30, and I hope many of you will come in from all over the place. It's well worth the drive for folks in Minnesota, parts of Illinois, Michigan. Come on over and enjoy us. And of course, drive in from Wisconsin. It's in your home state. worldviewtube.com/events. We'll have Jim Schneider there opening in prayer. We're going to have Congressman Glenn Grothman greet the crowd and make a statement or two. And it's going to be a great evening. I hope you'll join us. All right. Joining me now is David Pyne. He is the president of the EMP Task Force. Remember my friend, the late Dr. Peter Pry? Of course, sadly, he passed away. And David is now the leader of that organization. And that website is emptaskforce.us, emptaskforce.us. And David's Substack page is dpyne.substack.com. All right, David, the music and the hard break was going to take it away and drown you out there. So let me have you pick it up there. Concerns about the striking of our U.S. homeland. Get into that, please.
Well, let me just say that the reason we're at greater risk of World War III is due to the fact that, we're exerting overlapping spheres of influence against Russia and China primarily. Russia, of course, in Ukraine, most notably. That's clearly a Russian sphere of influence that borders on their territory. Really, the whole former Soviet Union is a Russian sphere of influence, other than the Baltics, which we've taken away from them, obviously, by having them join NATO. And then, of course, with China, Taiwan is a nuclear red line for China. If we were to choose to defend Taiwan militarily in an unwinnable war, as President Trump has stated, it would certainly lead to catastrophic Chinese, cyber attacks minimally and counter space attacks against the U.S. homeland. But just as a as a historical lesson, great power alliances have transformed two world wars into, or rather two regional wars in Eastern Europe into unnecessary world wars that cost the lives of over 100 million people. And now, U.S. involvement in NATO, has, certainly during the Biden administration, it threatened to, transform a regional war in Ukraine, again in Eastern Europe, into a potential nuclear war that could cost 1 billion lives. And thankfully, President Trump is taking decisive action to prevent that. But my point is that if the U.S. were not, trying to ally with, these foreign powers half the world away, the U.S. would be far more safe and secure. Unfortunately, the more we, fight this proxy war against Russia and Ukraine, the more we get confrontational with China over Taiwan and refuse to at least open negotiations regarding potential confederation, EU-style confederation, or even full unification between China and Taiwan. we really open up our homeland to either a massive cyber attack or even a super EMP attack that could cost the lives of 255 million Americans. We are at a huge risk, perhaps a little bit less than we had under Biden, but in some cases even possibly more, just because China is really primed and ready to move on Taiwan.
So if we were to be hit in the U.S., so we go to war with Iran, do we need to even worry about Hezbollah and their terror cells here in the U.S., which we know are here? What do we need to be worried about? And of course, obviously, Hamas works with Iran. We saw that on October 7th. So I guess we'd have to be worried about Hezbollah and Hamas here, correct?
Well, potentially, yeah. I mean, we've had Iranian terror cells in the country by the dozens or more since back when I worked on the U.S. Army headquarters staff in 2000 or 2003. So that's nothing new, but it's only gotten worse under Biden. Accepting all these known foreign terrorist suspects into our country and letting them roam free. And, definitely they could be activated. I'm more concerned, of course, with the 100,000, estimated PLA troops in the U.S. that I'm not sure if Trump is going to take any major action to expel. Hopefully that he'd make that a top priority in terms of immigration enforcement and deportation. But I think the greater threat is not from, these kind of lower level terrorist threats. It's really from what I mentioned in that Iran has a substantial capability to, in terms of cyber capability to take down U.S. infrastructure. It's not a full capability. It's not on the level of China, Russia, and North Korea. But principally, the main threat we face from Iran, in addition to potentially nuclear ICBMs, which they might have one or two of those. It's really from their super EMP satellites, which Tommy Waller and I, Tommy Waller, of course, being the CEO of the Center for Security Policy, wrote articles a couple years ago that Iran has deployed these super EMP satellites at optimal altitude over the U.S. To blanket the U.S. with a super EMP emission that could take down all of our critical infrastructure with little to no warning.
So as we get ready to wrap here and then check in with Aaron in Israel, the threat level, we discussed that last night. People were very concerned, and rightfully so, during the Obama year, the Biden years. And last night, I'm not so sure that we need to breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh, all is fine. In fact, I said the threat may be as great or greater, depending on the area. Now, based on what we saw taking place last night, what would you say to the American people as far as being on guard and prepared?
Well, I think we need to be on high alert as in terms of the American people, just because of the total amalgamation of all the threats we're facing. Certainly, as we discussed last night, that the threat from in terms of war with Russia is going down, but it's far from zero. It's still on the table. I do have high confidence that Trump will not yield to make direct attacks on Iran. Potentially he could maybe go for attacks on their oil rigs or ships. Probably ships would be more likely, but if he targets, land targets, ground targets, especially their nuclear infrastructure in Iran, that could be very dangerous in terms of them revealing the existence of their nuclear arsenal and perhaps even activating their super EMP satellites. But the main threat, I think, remains China, and I think that's a threat that's very likely to materialize later this year and potentially just in the next couple of weeks. And how Trump responds will really determine the fate of our country. If he responds, as I suspect, with trying to negotiate a deal and doesn't get too confrontational in the realization that there's no way we could win a war with China over Taiwan. with their capabilities to, block us in the first and even the second island chains with, their air defense, all their anti-ship missiles, which they have over 1,000, and very long-range ones. I think we can avert war with China, but if instead he yields to the temptation, and the bad advice of his neocon advisors to get us in a war with China that we can't win, I think it's going to turn out very badly for us.
Wow, well, historic days, absolutely. We are getting word from Sky News that Putin agreed to stop all strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. So I'm sure more is going to be coming out about that call that went 3 hours. If it fits into your schedule, I'll loop back around this afternoon and see about getting an update from you on Brandon House Live tonight, because the story, there's a lot more to come out, I'm sure, about that 3-hour phone call. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
David Pyne checking in, our national security advisor. David Pyne, dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. Wow, so much going on today. Let's get an update, because, again, the strikes started up last night as we were getting off the air. Apparently, the hostages were not released according to the schedule by Hamas for Israel. And so Israel said, we're going back to pounding you guys. And that happened. So joining me now is our reporter on the ground, Aaron Lavarco, brought to you by our foundation. We send him regular love offerings so that we can break into his day at all hours of the day and night. And he even was texting with me in the middle of the night last night, Israel time. He was returning my text. We were communicating, and then he said, okay, I'm going back to bed. So again, it's a workman is worthy of his hire, the Bible says. So we send him regular love offerings. And if you appreciate these ministry broadcast reports, we appreciate your support that helps us do that. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. He joins us now, Aaron Lavarco. Aaron, welcome back, my friend. Give our audience an update on what has happened since our conversation yesterday.
Well, I got some good sleep, number one. But seriously, it's all breaking out, Brandon. It is insane. Our Middle East is just, it's like, I don't know what to compare it with. We have had fire in the Gaza Strip, in Syria, in Lebanon, from the Houthis in the south. A short time ago, the Houthis fired at us a ballistic missile. They said when the ceasefire began about 2 months ago, they said, if the ceasefire continues, we will continue to hold back our fire. But if it starts up again, we'll start the fire. Well, they've started the fire. What they don't know, or what they didn't think about when they made those threats, is that the Americans are in town. They're sending more aircraft carriers. This is really getting very serious. Egypt are saying they are losing $800 million a month. $800 million a month because of the loss of trade through the Suez Canal. The Houthis are causing untold damage. This is the main reason why they need to be eliminated.
Hold right there. We come back. We'll also get to Israel kills the head of Hamas government in the Gaza Strip. Breaking news. Don't go away. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHousebg.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Aaron, one of the things I want to make sure we get to is there's a lot of videos circulating today claiming that Israel has just killed a bunch of innocent children, civilians. I'm getting some reports that some of this footage is fake. What are you hearing? Has Israel, and of course, part of the problem is these terrorists like to hide and shoot off rockets to your country with civilians around them, hospitals, schools, daycare centers, residential neighborhoods. But all over social media today are the typical anti-Semites showing video footage from Hamas that you guys have killed a bunch of children. I don't know that we want to get our video footage from Hamas out of Gaza and believe them. What are you hearing, whether it's the Houthis or Gaza? What are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing that in the Gaza Strip, there have been over 300 deaths. But my question, when we hear reports children have been killed, is someone with a machine gun, 12 years old, 10 years old, are they classified as a child? Is someone that is running from corner to corner with information, trying to tell Hamas operatives, terrorists, where the Israelis are they classified as children? You know, this is becoming old strategy now, Brennan, and we have warned, we've told Gaza Strip, we've told Northern Gaza Strip, we've told neighborhoods to get out. We've told them to clear out. Now, some people have done that. They've got out. For those that don't get out, Israel is not responsible. Their parents, Hamas leaders who are leading on the streets, they are the ones responsible. So if it is true, and of course we don't know who to believe, because let me tell you this, Brennan, the other day that there was 8 Palestinians that were killed, and the report was that there were 3 Palestinian news reporters. Well, guess what? It was found out that there were 3 Palestinian news reporters, but they were all Hamas terrorists dressed as Palestinian news reporters. So, the number of deaths is correct, but as I said, we are warning the people to get out. We're coming in, and if there are civilians there, that is not Israel's responsibility. That is 100% Hamas's responsibility. They are ruling the streets in Gaza.
All right, let's go to the fact that we hear that one of the major leaders of Hamas, a couple of them have been killed in Gaza. What are you hearing? I think 4 or 5 of them, right?
Absolutely. We're pinpointing leaders. This is based on our military intelligence, which thankfully there's been a lot of criticism about that there hasn't been enough. Even criticism before October the 7th that we didn't have even one operative in the ground inside Gaza. They are some of the reports that have been going on. And of course, that investigation is still ongoing. But yes, terrorists have been eliminated from within Gaza, and it will continue to do so. Our defense minister, Brannon, Israel Katz, has said, we will not rest until every hostage is back.
Now, the ceasefire stopped. Did it expire? Did the agreement expire? Or was it because they didn't return hostages, so you guys started back up?
So the phase 1 finished. It was supposed to go into stage 2, but Israel are saying that Hamas has not fulfilled their responsibilities by handing over more of our people. They're now called hostages. They're our people. They're our sons. They're our daughters. They're our friends, our family. So they're not handing them over. Hamas are demanding a full withdrawal of Israeli troops, and we're not going to do that. We are not going to pull out of Gaza. And by the way, it was reported today, very serious report by our defense minister, saying that in the ceasefire period, Hamas have been planning a number of plans. There we go. Hamas reportedly recruited thousands of fighters during 2 months ceasefire. What for? What for, Brennan? To do another October the 7th. They have been planning to break through our barriers, our borders, probably also in Judea and Samaria. We talked about that a number of times over the last number of months. But this is why our defense minister, Israel Katz, is saying there's no compromise here. We are going to totally eliminate Hamas. Now, tomorrow morning, Brandon, I'm flying out of Israel. I'm coming to the States, as you said. I just wonder if I'm going to get out because with ballistic missiles firing. But what's really interesting here, this time, where are the threats from Iran? Where are the threats from the Iraqis? Where are the threats from Hezbollah? There aren't any. And that shows that we have been victorious. I'm not saying we've won the war, but we have been very victorious. We're not getting too many threats. I don't want to speak too soon, but it seems that with Hezbollah being crippled, Hamas, they're not quite crippled, as we've just seen. They've been regrouping. Tehran are very quiet. And I think with what's going on with the Americans getting involved here, the strong arm of America, showing muscle, flexing muscle, talking the language of the Middle East, Tehran are very, very quiet. Let's see what happens. And I wonder what was in that 3-hour conversation between Putin and with Trump. Because as I said last night, Putin's foreign minister, Lavrov, he strongly told Trump yesterday, stop the firing on the Houthis. So it's ramping up.
Yeah, it is ramping up. And of course, everyone is keeping their eye on Iran. And you just heard our report. What did you make, by the way, of our report from David Pyne concerning China and Iran and all that's going on? It seems as though the globalists, the neocons, are trying to do exactly what we kind of predicted here, have President Trump involved in so much on a global scale that it distracts him from his domestic policies. What are your thoughts?
Look, I don't know enough about domestic policies, Brandon, but as far as the foreign policies, I mean, he's got his hands full no matter what. Definitely the concern, the economic concern of those nations, the BRICS, that want to weaken the American dollar. They want to create a stronger dollar. Now, you know, we've been talking about Gaza and how the Americans, how Trump put on the table a proposal to take over Gaza. I'm not talking about Israel taking over Gaza. I'm talking about America. One of the main reasons it's been said by our experts why Trump wants to take over Gaza. It's not just Gaza, Brennan. He wants to enlarge this peace corridor, which goes all the way through India, connecting Asia, India, with Europe, bypassing Egypt, bypassing China, creating a huge passage right through the Middle East, right through Israel, right through the Gaza Strip. The reason Gaza is so important is because they need a port. All the other ports along the Mediterranean aren't so important. The Gaza port is very important, and it's in a strategic location. And so can you imagine this? It's called a peace corridor with India involved, with Saudi Arabia, with so many nations involved. It's to strengthen the US dollar, and it's going to and as I said, it's going to connect Asia with Europe. Let's see how that unfolds. And I haven't heard too much lately about any plans or any next stages in the takeover of the Gaza Strip. You know, none of the Arab countries have come up with a decent proposal.
Yeah, I bet not.
No.
Yeah.
So they're stuck. And you know, if Trump sees that and sees that vacuum, he should move. Now, I don't know if you personally want to see that, because I understand your concerns for home issues. But I think it's a win for him as well, and it will affect home issues. If the dollar strengthens, this could be a massive part of the strengthening of the economy.
Well, I want you, let's open the phone lines before I go to another article real quick. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. 1-800-347-9829. Some of you I know don't want to call into shows. You get nervous. So if you want to email in a question, you can do that. Brannon, Brannon, Brannon at worldviewtube.com. Brannon, Brannon at worldviewtube.com. You can send in a question there as well. Otherwise, 1-800-347-9829. Before we go to the phone lines, let's take a look at this headline. Qatar caught funding Brown University program to turn students against Israel. Here we go. The Qatari government is using its funding of an American college where the curriculum for thousands of American K-12 schools is drafted to reshape the way school children in the U.S. are taught, injecting anti-Israel bias into primary and secondary school education. Let's add that to the fact, didn't we just have somebody with one of the universities here in America leave and go over to the funeral for Nasrallah? Aaron, are you guys following that over there as well?
Yes. I can't remember the name, but I did read that. By the way, Brannon, tomorrow when I fly, I'm going to be, guess where I'm flying? I'm flying to Palestine.
What?
I am flying into Palestine. Have you not heard of the new Palestine?
Oh, you mean in New Jersey?
In New Jersey.
Yeah, the capital of Palestine in New Jersey. That's right. Yeah, good for you.
Edison.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Here we go. Deported Brown University doc went to Nasrallah funeral. Had photos sympathetic to terrorist group, government says. Let me tell you, as we get ready to go to the phone lines, Aaron, I am very concerned about many of these young people who Alan Dershowitz warned on my broadcast several times. He said, look, a lot of these kids that are being brainwashed will turn into terrorists. I'm concerned about that. I mean, we talk about foreign terrorists, terror cells, but what about homegrown terrorists?
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, I just got an update.
Yep.
Right as we are talking, Netanyahu is speaking to the nation.
Yep.
A very serious update. He said, from now on, all negotiations will take place under fire.
Wow.
This is a big change in policy. And let me tell you, it is not going down well with a lot of our left-wing liberal society. They are out there protesting. They are so against this. This is putting pressure on Netanyahu, but I think it's time. It's time.
Well, you guys tried the peace thing. We don't have all the hostages back. The people tried the peace and kumbaya at the kibbutzes on the border. They got slaughtered. Their names were grabbed during interfaith events so they could target them. I don't know. I guess, as we like to say, liberalism is a mental disorder, and it crosses the sea over to Israel as well. Phone lines open. We'll be back with that. Don't go away.
Looking for a trusted source to understand today's world through a Christian worldview? Worldview Tube is built on the 35 years of Worldview books, columns, research, and high-profile interviews of Brannon House. Want to know more about Worldview Tube, its founder, history, team, and mission? Visit worldviewtube.com/about. That's worldviewtube.com/about. Worldview Tube is your source for understanding the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Welcome back. 1-800-347-9829. Let's go right away to the phone calls. Jerry, line 1. Hi, Jerry. Thank you for calling in today.
Hello. How's it going, you guys?
Great. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, you know what? I will probably, what I'm going to say is probably going to be controversial, but I believe the prophecies of Ezekiel 37, 15 through 28. Now, let me explain how that would be controversial. See, I feel that Israel today, in this verse, is being referred as Judah. And see, in Israel, after the Syrian captivity, those tribes migrated north. They went over the Caucasus Mountains, migrated in Europe, came over to the Americas. I believe that if America does get this part of Israel, Gaza Strip, that it would be this reunion. So when you guys are speaking, when I heard Trump saying something about it, I'm like, it reminded me of this verse.
Okay,
and I know that the controversy is that people's, I just feel that Judah here is Israel today, and Israel is us, is the Western society, I guess.
Okay, so do you believe the church
the Christian nations, nations of today.
How about speaking specifically? Would you believe the church is Israel today?
I believe that it's part of it.
Okay, let me ask you this, because it'll help me understand, Jerry, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm glad you called in, because we don't have to agree.
Thank you.
We don't have to agree for callers to call in. It's great to have a conversation.
No, right.
You
were just saying that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this so I can kind of understand where you're coming from. Your eschatology. What kind of church denomination have you been trained in?
Well,
is it Presbyterian?
My family, excuse me?
Presbyterian? Which one? What particular denomination?
Okay. No, my family was always a Catholic because I was born in Honduras. I'm a naturalized citizen now, and then I just became a biblical Christian. My family goes to just a Lutheran church. My mom now does, and my brothers and sister go to a Christian church.
Okay, good. Good. I'm just trying to get a feel.
When they look at me, as a biblical, because if they have a question, they'll usually call me, and I'm like, hey, I'm not a teacher or nothing, but
right. But you're learning, and that's again why our show is here, and that's why we open the phone lines. So let's see if we can get Aaron to answer, because we're all learning, and it sounds like you got some good questions. So Aaron, he's telling us straight up, look, I've come from Catholicism, I've become a biblical Christian, and here is his question, which you can kind of understand where maybe from his eschatology that he comes from, what he's been taught. So you want to help him out?
Yeah. No, I've heard of that belief system and theology, and some people call it the two-house theory. Ephraim and Manasseh being when the 12 tribes were scattered, that when the exiles came back, they all came back under just one tribe, Judah. That's where we get the word Jew from. And the whole mystery of the scattered tribes and the restoration of the scattered tribes. Look, if that's your belief, fair enough. I can't disprove it or prove it, but I think we're going to have to wait and see for the outcome. What I do know, when you said the statement that you said, the church is Israel. Today, the Jews in Israel are Judah, and the church is Israel. I don't know about that. I know that obviously, historically, Jews have been forcibly converted to either Islam or Catholicism. So today's offspring of those people could well be Jewish blood, and that they are part of Israel. But to say that the whole church is Israel, I think that probably taking it a little bit too far.
Well, that would be replacement theology, and we know that in the Scripture there is a distinction between ecclesia, church, called out ones, and the Jews. We know that, and so again, I appreciate his calling in because he's trying to learn. He's asking legitimate questions, and we ought to be able to give answers. So there you go. Thank you, Jerry. Christine, line 4. Hi, Christine.
Hi there. I just want to let the folks know you have a lot of listeners in Wisconsin. We have there's big rallies going on campuses. The teachers are going out of their minds because Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education, but they have pro-Hamas groups. Pro-Hamas groups are here in the mix of all of this, and this is what they stand for. This is what our education system is. Pro everything evil and insane. And you're so right. The terrorists are going to come out of these insane educational ideologies. So pray for this state also, please.
Thank you, Christine. Pastor Cass, line 2. Hi, Pastor. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I've had to deal with people that have that belief of the idea that the Jews migrated over the Caucasus Mountains, and that's the Caucasians and so on. It's really not a biblical based. If you look in Chronicles, it says, when Jeroboam made the golden calves in Bethel and Dan, that some from every tribe came back to Judah. So there are no lost tribes. And also, if you look at Ezekiel 36, it's very clear there's a prophecy to the land, to the rivers, and that they will not produce unless the Jewish people, the authentic Jewish people, are in the land. And we saw that for almost 2,000 years. So the people that are there today are the Jewish people from the tribes, the 12, 13, if you want to count Ephraim and Manasseh. But there is no lost tribes. And God made a prophecy specifically to the land, so we don't have to argue about it. The land is producing. It never did before without the Jewish people there. And that's why the Assyrians had to bring back the Jews to mix them with the Canaanites, was because the land wouldn't produce.
And we know
the Jewish people being there.
And we know from the book of Revelation, don't we, Pastor, that these 144,000 are come from all the 12 tribes, and God knows who they are. He knows their DNA, does he not, Pastor?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And I just like to say, I wish I would have started later. I've been teaching through eschatology in the book of Revelation, but I'm way ahead of you, so I'm in chapter 21 right now. So it would have been nice if you were ahead of me, because then I could have tried to glean from some of your stuff.
Well, you're very kind. We can glean from each other, because I'm telling you, I read so many different commentators, and I learn from all of them, because, and I was thinking to myself the other day, I can't wait to finish so I can turn around and start teaching it again, because so much is happening that you can, understand more and more and more from the text. It's crazy. Thank you, Pastor Cass, for checking in. Thank you, folks, for listening. Hope you'll stay tuned for Crosstalk coming up next with Jim Schneider. I'm Brandon House. Take care.
This has been Worldview Radio.
Joining me back is Aaron out of Israel. Aaron, how do the Christians, the Messianic Jews in Israel, how are they right now when it comes to the book of Revelation? Is there a lot of talk about Revelation, Daniel, Ezekiel 38? Are you guys, are you like people that live in Washington, D.C., for instance? When you live in Washington, D.C., you don't really care about going to the White House, the museums. You're not. I even talked to a friend of mine who's 71. He's lived there his whole life. The other day I said, do you ever go down to the museums on a Saturday, get up and say, hey, let's go to the museum of, Air and Space Museum and check out the latest, or the new, or the Air and Space Museum they've added over by Dulles Airport. Or the Museum of Natural History. You have so much on a given Saturday you could go do. No, not really. People in Washington, D.C. don't really care. I guess it's in comparison. People here in Memphis, they're not running to Graceland all the time, or some of them never been to Graceland. My wife's been here 20 years. She's never been to Graceland. But people come from all over the world to go to Graceland. They come from all over the world to go to Washington, D.C. Are your people in some ways desensitized from the fact that they're living at the very center, the epicenter of where all this is going to occur? Or are they very aware of it and therefore are studying the Bible more and more?
That's a really good question. I think there's a bit of everything. There are those who are, fully connected to the land, the past, the present, and the future. And of course, as a tour guide, that's one of my pitch lines where I say, what makes this land so special is the past, is the present, and the future. So, but then there are others exactly like this 70-year-old plus man. It's like we're right in the middle. They just more interested in surviving. Sufficient unto the evil is this day, and they're trying to make ends meet. So yeah, we have a bit of all of that. But then, of course, in our congregations, there is good biblical teaching, and some pastors very much go into the prophetic last day events and all of that. So yeah, I think a bit of everything.
Do you know of people that have been in Israel their whole life, that have never been to the Temple Mount, the Western Wall, that have never been to the big sites, that just have not been to any of these, or hardly any of them?
I don't know too many, and I'll tell you why. Because even at school, Brandon, on school field trips, they take you, the teachers, they take you to these places. When you're in the army, they take you to these places to learn about our past, to learn about some of the prophets and the kings and the priests who spilled blood over these places. So it's driven deep into our psyche. It's actually part of the military psychological warfare to go to these places, to know that here Gideon and the 300, they risked their all for our land, for our people. It's a big part of our, so I don't know too many, but I do know, people that haven't been to certain places for decades out of fear. They're actually afraid of going into the old city of Jerusalem or near the border of the Gaza Strip, things like that. There definitely are people that are afraid. They look at the news and they get too afraid to move.
So in closing here, Aaron, what is your country saying about America and Israel striking Iran's nuclear facility? Are you hearing any talk about that?
Yeah, there is a lot of talk about it, Brandon. There is a lot of talk, but there has been a lot of talk for a long time.
But are you seeing Israeli fighter jets and American fighter jets or bombers flying together in formation? You see anything that says, hey, that's U.S. and Israeli aircraft rehearsing together?
I haven't seen. I have heard of exercises together. I have seen pictures. It's very encouraging to us. It's sending out a message to our neighbors. But the fact is, when we are reading the news, hearing that aircraft carriers are in the port of Haifa, or they're going down to smash to pieces the Houthis, oh my gosh, this is great news for Israel. It strengthens our cause. It strengthens Bibi Netanyahu's position, and it makes you put more trust in our leadership and in our military, which has taken a severe knocking from October the 7th, slowly, when the tables have started to turn with the pages, with the leaders being targeted. We're getting more and more confidence in our leaders. The fact that Donald Trump is in town, that's a good feel factor, believe me.
Excellent. We'll be sending you another love offering today, Aaron. Thank you for all your work.
Your pleasure, Brandon. And I look forward next time that we're going to see each other. I'm going to be in the States. I'm flying out tomorrow morning. So look forward to seeing you
All right,
there.
let me know what phone to communicate with you on.
Definitely. Thanks,
Aaron,
Brandon.
Aaron LaVarco. Folks, we need your support. We need it now. WorldviewFoundation.com. We had a day last week where donations were really low. Folks, I know some of you are strapped, but if you can afford it, we need your support now. WorldviewFoundation.com. WorldviewFoundation.com. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Right right, well, the Justice Department reportedly investigating Medicare fraud in the U.S. The probe comes as DOJ is also digging into the issue. Fox Business' Grady Trimble live in Washington with more. Hey, Grady.
Hey, Dana. The DOJ is specifically looking into United Healthcare and its billing practices related to Medicare Advantage. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the Justice Department has launched a civil fraud investigation into the company. But UHC is firing back, calling the report misinformation and adding any suggestion that our practices are fraudulent is outrageous and false. Separately, as you noted, Elon Musk says DOJ is going to tackle Social Security and medical waste and fraud, suggesting Americans could receive more money and better health care as a result of DOJ's work. But Democrats claim President Trump wants to cut Medicaid.
What he is doing is cutting with a chainsaw important services that benefit every American to make room for those tax cuts for the very rich. And so they want to cut things like Medicaid, Medicare.
Well, Trump, though, has said publicly and told House Republicans behind closed doors that cuts to Medicare should not be on the table, or Medicaid, I should say. Speaker Mike Johnson says the budget is aimed at waste, fraud, and abuse within that program.
We're going to look to find that. I do think we're not looking to make cuts to Medicaid, but certainly work requirements are something that I don't view as cuts. Work requirements are just common sense.
And by the way, these Medicaid and Medicare fraud cases that Republicans are talking about, they're not just hypotheticals. Just last week in Massachusetts, a businessman was charged in a $30 million Medicare fraud scheme using that money to buy luxury cars and watches. Republicans say there's a lot more of this fraud going on in addition to these cases that are already getting prosecuted. Dana?
Grady Trimble, thank you.
Doging. That's a new verb in Washington, D.C. and around the country. And Elon Musk is doging Medicaid and Medicare. Welcome back to Truth Thursday here on the Rob Maness Show, folks. And we're live on Worldview Tube, our X Spaces simulcast, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon, and Roku. Well, $2.7 trillion. That's a really big number. And Elon Musk's Doge team publicized it as the total of improper payments they think they're discovering in their auditing effort of Medicaid and Medicare in early February. By each agency's own recent public admissions, and they post this stuff, they make more than $30 billion of improper payments every year. This has got to stop. Look, while we Americans have a lot of disagreements on health care these days, on this issue, I think we mostly agree that these funds have to be spent on our citizens that need the services and pay for them. And fraud, waste, and abuse has got to be eliminated in these agencies. We live in a country that has a $37 trillion debt, and we now pay more than $1 trillion a year in interest on that debt. That's more than we are spending on defense, folks. Well, my guest today is author Sally Pipes. She is president, CEO, and Thomas W. Smith Fellow in Healthcare Policy at the Pacific Research Institute. She's joining me to discuss her opinion piece from just a little over a week ago in Newsmax titled Time to Administer Doge to Medicare and Medicaid, where she points out, and I'll quote this, the two government programs have been cesspools of malfeasance, incompetence, and duplicity for too long. And the cost of all this corruption and waste has grown at a staggering clip in recent years, close quote. Sally, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, and thank you so much for spending some time with my audience and I.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on and discuss this important issue. I'm really excited that President Trump announced the DOGE because Department of Government Efficiency under Elon Musk, who's never worked in government, so he understands how a profit and loss system should work. And so this is very exciting. And I know a lot of Democrats and progressives are very upset. But as you pointed out in my initial quote, there is a tremendous amount of fraud, abuse, malfeasance in the Medicare program, the program for our seniors, and the Medicaid program, the program for low-income individuals.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've taken a look at your bio, obviously, and you're an author of several books in this area of expertise. What was interesting to me, though, is that it seems that you come from a market-based perspective instead of a government healthcare perspective. in your writing about this, and I'd say you're an expert in this area based on what I've read so far. And am I right to assume that you were opposed to Obamacare like I was, and would still like to see the government out of our healthcare system as much as possible?
Well, absolutely. And I grew up in Canada. I worked at the Fraser Institute, where in the late 80s, we started a program called Waiting Your Turn, a guide to waiting lists. And in 1993, the average Canadian waited 9.3 weeks from seeing a primary care doctor to treatment by a specialist. Last year, that number, over 30 weeks from seeing a primary care doc to treating by a specialist. And all healthcare in Canada is single payer Medicare. There's no private coverage. So I've been fighting against these intrusions into our healthcare system. And President Obama, when he signed into law Obamacare, March 23rd, 2010, his real goal was that we would end up being in a Medicare for all single payer system, as Bernie Sanders gets on the stump as often as possible to say we need government healthcare. He never talks about the waits, the